My husband keeps texting me. He's been dead for 5 years. My husband died 5 years ago, but I'm getting texts from his old number that know things only he could, like my nickname and what I did last night. The messages won't stop, even after changing my phone and locks. I found his buried wedding ring under my bed, and now something's knocking at my door, texting me to let it in. I'm terrified and need help. My name is Emma, and for the last 5 years, I've been carrying a wound that never heals. My husband, James, was taken from me in a car accident on a rain-soaked night in October 2020. The memory of that night is etched into my bones. The screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal, and the police officer's voice on the phone, cold and detached, telling me he was gone. It was a truck, they said, barreling through a red light on a slick highway, stealing James's life in a heartbeat. I've spent every day since trying to rebuild, to find some way to keep breathing in a world that feels hollow without him. I moved to a small house on the edge of town, surrounded by quiet streets and whispering pines, hoping distance would dull the pain. Didn't. Last week, something impossible happened, something that's unraveled every fragile thread of sanity I've clung to. My phone buzzed with a text from James's old number, a number I hadn't seen since the day he died. The message was short, like a whisper from the grave. "You home?" I sat frozen on my couch, the glow of the screen burning my eyes in the dim living room. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. It had to be a mistake. A glitch in the system, a recycled SIM card, or some sick prank by someone who'd found his old phone. Numbers get reassigned, don't they? People move on, and technology doesn't care about your grief. I checked the number, my fingers trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. It was his, unmistakable, down to the last digit. The number I used to call to hear his warm laugh, his sleepy good morning, starlight, or his, "I'm grabbing takeout, want anything?" I stared at it, the digits blurring through tears, and dialed it before I could think better of it. The call connected, and my stomach lurched when his voicemail answered. "Hey, it's James. Leave a message." His voice was so alive, so achingly familiar, it felt like a cruel trick. I hung up, my breath coming in shallow gasps, and told myself it was nothing. Coincidence. A glitch. But 2 days later, as I sat at my kitchen table nursing a cold cup of coffee, my phone lit up again. Another text from his number. "Missed me?" The words stared back at me, simple but heavy, like a hand reaching through the screen to grip my throat. This wasn't a mistake. Something was terribly, impossibly wrong. I tried to hold on to reason, to anchor myself in a world that made sense. I called our old phone carrier the next morning, my voice shaking as I explained the texts. The representative, a bored-sounding woman named Karen, checked their records and confirmed what I already feared. The number was still tied to James's account, inactive since I'd closed it after his death. No one had reactivated it. No one had requested a transfer. "It's probably a glitch," she said, her tone dismissive. "These things happen with old accounts." I wanted to scream at her, to make her understand that this wasn't just a glitch, but I thanked her and hung up. I reached out to my friend Sarah, who works in IT and knows her way around code and networks. Over coffee at a crowded diner, I showed her the texts, my hands trembling as I scrolled through them. She frowned, her brow furrowing as she read. "Could be someone spoofing the number?" she said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "Or maybe a hacker got into an old database. Change all your passwords, block the number, and don't engage. Whoever's doing this wants a reaction." Her words were practical, a lifeline of logic, and I clung to them like a drowning woman. I spent that night resetting every password I had, email, banking, social media, even my thermostat app, convinced it was some elaborate scam. But the texts didn't stop. They came at odd hours, pinging my phone when I was brushing my teeth, or lying awake at 2 a.m., or driving home from the grocery store. Each one felt like a violation, a crack in the walls I'd built around my grief. One read, "You still wear that blue scarf I got you." My breath caught in my throat. The scarf, soft wool dyed a deep sapphire, was a gift from James for our 3rd anniversary. It hung in my closet, worn but cherished, and I'd wrapped it around my neck last week while walking through the park, the autumn leaves crunching under my boots. No one could know that. Another text used the nickname he'd given me, Starlight. He'd called me that because I loved stargazing, dragging him to the backyard with a blanket to watch the sky, his arm warm around me as we named constellations. The word felt like a secret, something sacred between us, and seeing it on my screen was like watching a stranger rummage through my memories. The messages grew more personal, more invasive. One night, as I sat on my couch with a glass of wine, trying to drown out the silence, my phone buzzed with a text that made my blood run cold. "You were crying on the kitchen floor last night, like in 2018. I set the glass down, my hand shaking so badly the wine sloshed onto the table. He was right. I'd had a rough day, one of those where the grief hits like a tidal wave, and I'd collapsed on the kitchen tiles, sobbing until my throat was raw. In 2018, we'd fought about moving to a new city for his job, a screaming match that ended with me crying in that exact spot while he knelt beside me, his hands gentle on my shoulders, promising we'd figure it out together. No one could know that moment. I live alone, in a house surrounded by tall pines, with locked doors and curtains drawn tight. I stumbled to the kitchen, checking the windows, the back door, even the cabinets, my heart pounding as I searched for some sign of intrusion. The house was empty, silent except for the creak of the floorboards under my feet and the distant howl of wind through the trees. The texts became a relentless assault, each one a new layer of dread. They came at all hours, waking me from fitful sleep or interrupting mundane tasks like folding laundry or chopping vegetables. One morning, I woke to find my phone open to a photo I hadn't taken. My living room at night, the furniture bathed in pale moonlight, James's favorite armchair, a worn leather recliner, slightly turned, as if someone had sat in it and left it askew. The timestamp was 3:14 a.m., when I'd been asleep. I deleted the photo, my pulse racing, but another text arrived. "You hummed our song in the shower yesterday." It was true. I'd been humming "Can't Help Falling in Love," our wedding song, the melody slipping out as I stood under the steaming water, the bathroom fogged with heat. I hadn't told a soul, hadn't even realized I was doing it until I read the text. I stopped sleeping, my eyes burning from staring at my phone, waiting for the next message. I started leaving lights on at night, the glow casting long shadows that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking. One night, my TV flickered on by itself, the screen filled with static that hissed like distant whispers. Through the noise, I swore I heard James's voice, faint and distorted, saying "Starlight" over and over, like a broken record. I yanked the plug from the wall, my hands shaking, and sat in the dark, clutching a kitchen knife until dawn. I went to the police the next day, clutching my phone like a lifeline. The officer, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a coffee-stained desk, barely glanced at the texts. "Probably a prank," he said, scribbling something on a notepad. "Kids these days can hack anything. Block the number and get a new phone if it keeps up." I tried blocking it, but the text slipped through, as if the number was carved into my phone's soul. I called the carrier again, practically begging, and they insisted the SIM hadn't been active since James's account was closed in 2020. "There's nothing on our end," the technician said, his voice tinged with irritation. "Maybe it's your phone." The messages grew darker, more specific, each one a needle under my skin. One read, "Why'd you throw out my old watch?" My stomach dropped. Last month, I'd found James's wristwatch in a drawer, the leather strap cracked, the face frozen at 2:17, the time of his crash, though I tried not to think about that. It hurt too much to keep, so I'd buried it in the trash, wrapped in an old grocery bag. No one knew I'd done that, not even Sarah. Another night, I woke to my bedroom door creaking open, the hinges groaning in the silence. I flicked on the lamp, my heart in my throat, but the hallway was empty, the air heavy with the scent of rain. My dog, Luna, a scruffy terrier who never barks, started whimpering and burrowing under the bed, her tail tucked tight. I called her, but she wouldn't come, her eyes wide and fixed on the doorway. I drove to James's grave the next day, desperate for some kind of anchor, some proof that this was all in my head. The cemetery was quiet, the sky heavy with gray clouds, the air thick with the smell of wet grass and decay. I knelt by his headstone, tracing the engraved letters of his name, my fingers cold against the granite. That's when I saw it. A crumpled wrapper from my favorite cinnamon candies, half buried in the fresh dirt near the stone. James used to buy them for me, teasing me about my sweet tooth, slipping them into my purse as a surprise. I hadn't been to the cemetery in months, hadn't eaten those candies in years. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out with shaking hands. The text read, "You looked sad at my grave." I stumbled back to my car, locking the doors, my breath fogging the windows as I hyperventilated. When I got home, I unplugged every device, TV, router, even the smart thermostat, and taped over my phone's camera, the adhesive tacky against my fingers. But another text came, "You can't hide from me, Starlight." The next night, I found muddy footprints in my hallway, leading to the basement door. The basement was James's domain, his workshop filled with tools, half-finished bookshelves, and the faint smell of sawdust. I hadn't been down there since he died. It felt like trespassing on his memory, like stepping into a room where he might still be, hunched over a project, humming off-key. I locked the door and dragged a heavy bookshelf in front of it, the wood scraping against the floor. At 3 a.m., I woke to knocking from the other side, slow and deliberate, like someone was testing my nerve. I sat up, clutching the sheets, my pulse roaring in my ears. Luna growled, low and guttural, her eyes fixed on the hallway. My security system pinged with an alert, showing a shadow moving in my backyard, a vague humanoid shape that vanished when I zoomed in. I checked the yard at dawn, my slippers soaking in the dew, but the grass was untouched. No footprints, no sign of anyone. Another text arrived. "You left the back door unlocked last week." I hadn't, but I checked the lock, and it felt loose, the mechanism sticking as if someone had pried at it with a tool. Small things started going wrong in the house, each one a new thread in the web of fear. A coffee mug I hadn't used sat on the counter, the rim stained with what looked like James's favorite black coffee. A book I'd left on the coffee table, a worn copy of The Great Gatsby we'd read together, was open to a page I hadn't touched, with James's handwriting in the margin. "Miss you." I threw the book in a drawer, my hands shaking, and nailed the basement door shut, the hammer slipping in my sweaty palms. One evening, Luna started growling at the attic hatch, her hackles raised, her eyes locked on the ceiling. The hatch was slightly ajar, though I hadn't touched it in years. I climbed up, my flashlight shaking in my hand, the air thick with dust and mildew. In the corner, I found an old photo album, one I'd forgotten about, filled with pictures of our honeymoon in Maine. Us smiling on a rocky beach, James's arm around me, the sun glinting off the waves. One photo had a fresh ink mark, a heart drawn around my face in shaky lines. My phone buzzed. We were happy then. I slammed the album shut and stumbled down the ladder, my knees buckling. I checked into a hotel that night, a sterile room with thin walls, but the texts followed. "You can't run from us." The house itself seemed to turn against me. The lights flickered at odd hours, not random but rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The thermostat reset to 68 degrees, James's preferred setting, no matter how many times I changed it. One night, I found the kitchen faucet dripping, the sink filled with water that smelled faintly of motor oil, like the kind James used in his workshop. I shut it off, my hands trembling, and found a faint handprint on the counter, too large to be mine, smudged in something dark and greasy. Another text. "You forgot to lock the attic." I hadn't been up there since the album, but when I checked, the hatch was open again, the ladder extended just enough to reach the floor. I moved to Sarah's house for 2 nights, sleeping on her lumpy couch. But the texts didn't stop. "You're not home. I'm waiting." I came back to find my bedroom window cracked open, the curtains fluttering, though I'd locked it before leaving. Inside, on my pillow, was a single cinnamon candy, unwrapped, its sharp scent filling the room. I couldn't take it anymore. For nights ago, my security system sent a photo from my bedroom camera, one I'd installed after the first texts. It showed me sleeping, my face half buried in the pillow, my chest rising and falling. At the edge of the bed was a shadow, humanoid, sitting still, its head tilted as if watching me. The image was grainy, but I could make out the shape of shoulders, the curve of a neck, too familiar, too much like James. I checked the footage myself, logging into the system with a password only I know. The recording showed nothing, no figure, no movement, just me sleeping through the night. The system logs confirmed no one had accessed it. No breaches, no tampering. I unplugged the camera, my hands shaking, and moved it to a closet. But the next night, another photo arrived, this time from my phone's camera, showing the same scene. Me asleep, the shadow closer, its hand hovering over my face. I hadn't taken it. I texted back, my fingers barely able to type, "What do you want?" The reply came instantly, "You promised forever, Starlight." My wedding vows, spoken under a sky bursting with stars. When I swore I'd be with him no matter what, through life and beyond. Another text followed, "Look under the bed." I didn't want to, but my body moved on its own, driven by some primal need to know. Under the bed, half hidden in the dust, was James's wedding ring. The one we buried with him, scratched and cold against my palm. I screamed, throwing my phone across the room, where it hit the wall with a crack, the screen spiderwebbing. The next night, the house felt alive with malice. The lights flickered in a slow, deliberate rhythm, like a pulse. My phone, despite its cracked screen, played a voicemail I'd never heard. James's voice, garbled and wrong, like it was underwater, saying, "I'm waiting, Starlight. I'm always waiting." I deleted it, but it reappeared an hour later, the timestamp impossibly set to the day he died. I stayed at Sarah's again, curled up under a borrowed blanket, but the texts kept coming, "You can't leave me again." The next morning, I woke with a scratch on my arm, red and raw, in the shape of a jagged J. I hadn't hurt myself, hadn't brushed against anything sharp. Luna wouldn't come near me, her eyes wide and fearful, her tail tucked as she hid under Sarah's coffee table. When I got home, I found my front door slightly ajar, though I'd locked it before leaving. Inside, the air was thick, heavy with the scent of rain and something metallic, like blood. On the kitchen table was a note, written in James's looping handwriting, "Come back to me." I burned it in the sink, the flames licking at my fingers, but the smoke curled into shapes that looked like his face. The incidents multiplied, each one a new weight on my chest. One night, I heard footsteps in the hallway, heavy and deliberate, stopping just outside my bedroom door. I clutched a baseball bat, my knuckles white, but when I opened the door, the hallway was empty, the air cold and still. Another time, my mirror fogged up while I showered, and when I wiped it clean, I saw words etched into the glass, "Forever." I smashed the mirror, the shards cutting my hands, and spent the night in the living room, the TV on to drown out the silence. My phone buzzed with a video that time, one I hadn't recorded. A grainy clip of me sleeping, the camera panning to show James's armchair rocking gently in the corner, though no one was in it. I deleted it, but it reappeared in my gallery, the file size growing each time I tried to erase it. Luna started refusing food, her eyes fixed on corners of the house I couldn't bear to look at. One night, I found her staring at the basement door, growling so fiercely I barely recognized her. When I approached, the door rattled, as if something on the other side was trying to get out. I tried everything to stop it. I changed my phone number, but the texts followed, now coming from an unknown number that my phone still labeled as James. I factory reset my phone, losing years of photos and messages, but the texts reappeared within hours, as if they'd never left. I hired a locksmith to reinforce every door, every window, the bolts gleaming like armor, but the locks felt loose the next day, as if someone had tested them in the night. I even contacted a medium, a woman with kind eyes and a cluttered shop filled with crystals and incense. She took one look at me, her face paling, and said, "Something's clinging to you, something that won't let go." She refused to help, handing me back my money and locking the door behind me. I burned sage until my house smelled like a wildfire, the smoke stinging my eyes, But the texts kept coming, now with photos. Me cooking dinner, me reading on the couch, me crying in my car, all taken from angles that suggested someone was inside my house, watching. I'm posting this on r/nosleep because I'm out of options, and I'm terrified I'm losing my mind. I've read stories here about hauntings, about things that defy explanation, and I'm hoping anyone has answers. Has this happened to you? Texts from someone who's gone. Messages that know things they shouldn't? I've done everything I can think of: new locks, new phone, cameras unplugged, even a priest who blessed the house, though he looked uneasy and left quickly. Nothing stops the texts. They come at all hours, each one a reminder that I'm not alone, even when I should be. Luna's stopped eating entirely, her ribs showing through her fur, and she won't leave the corner of the living room, her eyes locked on something I can't see. The house feels wrong now, the air thick and heavy, like it's pressing down on me. The lights flicker constantly, the thermostat resets to 68 degrees every night, and the faucets drip no matter how tightly I turn them off. I was typing this post, my hands shaking, when my phone buzzed again. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The text said, "I'm close. Open the door." As I read it, a knock started at the front door. Slow, heavy, like someone who knows they have all the time in the world. Luna's growling now, her teeth bared, her body low to the ground. The lights are flickering, the bulbs humming like they're about to burst. The air smells like rain and motor oil, and the knocking's getting louder, more insistent, each thud echoing in my chest. My phone buzzed again, and I can't bring myself to look, but I saw the preview. Starlight, let me in. The door's rattling now, the lock straining, and Luna's barking. A sound I've never heard from her, raw and desperate. I don't know what's outside. Don't know if it's James or something wearing his face, but the knocking's shaking the walls, and I'm too scared to move. Please, someone, tell me what to do, because I don't think I can keep this door closed much longer.